Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this special remembrance of Holocaust Memorial Day. My name is Derek Estill. I'm the Secretary of the Blackburn with Darwen Interfaith Forum. And it's good to be with you all this afternoon for this very important occasion. We got a number of speakers, including schools, and I'd like to introduce the first one, which is the Worshipful, the Mayor of Blackburn, Councillor Derek Hardman, who is going to open the proceedings and extend a welcome to you all.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Blackburn with Darwen annual Holocaust Memorial Day commemoration. The 27th of January, Holocaust Memorial Day, is an important date in our civic calendar. We would, under normal circumstances, gather in the council chamber to reflect on the atrocities of the Second World War and the millions of Jews who lost their lives in the Holocaust, as well as subsequent genocides. This year, like last, we are doing things differently, but this does not deter us from joining together people of all different ages, genders, backgrounds, nationalities, faiths, cultures and beliefs, standing together to condemn hatred and discrimination in all their ugly forms, and to commit to learn from the past to ensure such genocides do not happen again. Today we will remember and pay our respects to the millions of people who have suffered and lost their lives through Holocaust and subsequent genocides in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia, and Darfur. It is wonderful to see so many people joining us on Zoom, and I know that many more are watching us on YouTube. Welcome, everyone. Thank you again, Rabbi Arnold Saunders, for joining us today. We will hear from you in a short while. We are also joined by dignitaries including Blackburn's MP Kate Learn, Lancashire Constabulary Chief Constable Christopher Rowley, and Chief Superintendent Mark Winstanley. It's good to have you with us today. Following the 2020 Holocaust Memorial video, we will hear from local students and the chair of the Standing Advisory Council for Religious Education, who will present their interpretations of this year's Holocaust Memorial Day theme, One Day. We also involve the younger generations in our Holocaust Memorial Day activities here in Blackburn with Darwen. And that is why I'm really heartened to see that pupils from 8 different local schools are here with us today, taking a role in the ceremony, helping to ensure that all our future generations learn from what was the darkest time in history. It is also very important that we continue to teach our future generations to speak out and be united with fellow citizens. Despite any differences in our appearance of backgrounds, we help to build a more peaceful future for everyone. Our youth MP therefore reflects on how the younger generations can learn from the Holocaust and subsequent genocides. We will also hear from Abdul Kurtika, the chair of Blackburn with Darwen Interfaith Forum, who alongside myself will present the statement of commitment for the Holocaust Memorial Day. Throughout my memorial year, where really stood out for me is how united our communities are, no matter what their age, background, or religious belief, more than anywhere else I have ever seen. This makes me really proud of our people and of our place. Thank you to everyone joining us on Zoom and on YouTube. I hope you will all take something away from today and feel inspired that wherever we go, whatever we do, we can all hope that there may be one day in the future that there will be no genocide. We can all set a positive example throughout our lives, treat everyone to meet with respect and kindness that they deserve, and make a commitment to condemn all acts of hatred and oppression. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for those important words, and you're welcome. Our next item is a video which is just about to play. Those videos are heart-rending, aren't they, when you see some of the images that are shown there. But now we come to a very important part of our proceedings, because we have 8 of our local secondary schools who have been given the task to reflect upon the theme for this year, which is called One Day. And each school has had a strap line which is related to that theme, and they've been working on their own reflections and will now share them with us, one after the other, with each school introducing themselves, and it should therefore follow on without any further introductions. So the first school to come forward is Tahidal Boys High School, and would you please start your reflections, introduce yourself, and then the other schools carry on after Tahidal Boys has finished. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Ahmed Patel from the Tahidal Boys Islamic High School. Today I will give an overview of a speech titled "One Day We Will Realize Stronger Together." We remember the Holocaust and pay respect to the Jewish faith as well as other minorities. May we stand as one. Nazi Germany showed the world how powerful they were. When they sliced up the country of Germany, the one thing they did not realize, but when they did not realize when they did this, was that there was a young girl named Anne Frank who they blasted a ton of bravery into, and who wrote her diary and showed the world who Adolf Hitler really was. In her departing words, Anne Frank wrote, "I will make my voice heard. I will go out into the world and work for mankind. I will make my voice heard. I will go out into the world and work for mankind." This is how much bravery and confidence Miss Frank had of going back out into the world for the freedom to live. Unfortunately, that was taken away by the Nazis. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we remember the Holocaust, I will say this once and I will say this again. One day we shall realize we are stronger together.
My name's Lee Berry. I'm a teacher of history at the Studio School in Darwin. I'm here to talk about Holocaust Memorial Day 2022, the theme of One Day. In December 2021, myself and the sixth form students visited Clifford's Tower in York, scene of the infamous pogrom against the Jews in 1190. It was really important that the students visited a place of genocide in the UK and really touched and felt history from the perspective of one day. One day, in essence, if this can happen in 1190 in England, one of the most civilised countries in Europe, in the medieval world, then it could happen at any place at any time.
Hi, my name is Adam. I'm a sixth form history student at Studio School in Dalton. I'm here to talk about Clifford's Tower. In 1190, the Jews of York were forced to barricade themselves beside Clifford's Tower to escape an anti-Semitic mob group outside. Instead of giving themselves over to the group, they decided to set themselves on fire. Sadly, those who were inside Clifford's Tower were caught and hung the day after. We don't talk about this dark chapter of English history. One day it might happen again.
In 1290, England were expelled. The Edict of Expulsion implemented by Edward I. This torn Jewish communities apart. They were forced abroad and forced to change their lives. If this can happen one day, it can certainly happen again. It is important we don't repeat the same mistakes of the past. We must learn from this.
It really made me think about anti-Semitism, not only in this country, but unfortunately that's only been heightened due to the look at our roots, not only as history of anti-Semitism.
Philosopher George Santayana once said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." And as much as we might roll our eyes when someone preaches this to us, the man has a good point. We must remember the events from our past in order to improve our future by not repeating those same mistakes.
When we put it this way, it sounds like common sense. If you eat an ice cream too fast and get a brain freeze, the next time you eat ice cream, you'll eat it a bit slower.
But if our history is full of warnings, we clearly haven't been very good at heeding them. History is bursting with people who made mistakes similar to those of our predecessors, and would you look at that, they suffered similar, if not the exact same consequences. And it is these tragedies that are especially sad because we know that they're often preventable.
For most of us, these tragedies don't even make it to our doorstep.
The definition of safety is described as a state of feeling protected from harm or other non-desirable outcomes.
And having a good sense of well-being cannot fully happen if we don't all feel safe first.
Our reality means that we have the privilege to go to school and not have to worry that we'd experience something so severe as bombs falling over our heads. The fact that still today there have been as many as 24 instances of genocide since the Holocaust, and for people and children this is their new normal. That lack of safety is a major trigger for all the anxiety that they have to experience as a young child.
Many of us don't even have a concept of what being safe means. We can all admit that whilst watching a loving, cosy family on TV, we can't help but compare it to our own real experiences that are usually drastically different. But we are so aware of what safety feels like, we can immediately recognise when we lack even a little of what every child should deserve and more.
As a child, we all grow up with safe spaces. Whether that space may be in our bedrooms, feeling safe is the idea that we are not criticised by our loved ones and do not have to experience this soon-to-be-falling off the edge feeling. Feeling safe for those children is entirely a different thing. Having to experience the sound of gunshots near your home before they can experience going outside to play with their siblings. Experiencing a genocide before they have to experience a school day without having to practice bomb drills. Feeling safe for them means surviving. It means getting to live.
It is universally acknowledged by us all that we want to create a society that actively takes care of its future generations. Children that grow up to be more functional and productive leaders than the last. It means we not only encourage the remembrance of the 6 million Jews that were murdered in the Holocaust, but also the 1.5 million children who are victims of this genocide too. Future doctors, future lawyers, and future activists, those whose lives were cut short and who wanted to make a difference in the world, hoping for a future that guaranteed the protection of those around them, irrespective of who they were.
German schools mandate the teaching of the Holocaust in hopes that future generations will never repeat the same mistakes of the past. We're here today to talk and to remember and to hope that we'll never have to witness another genocide. And yet just 15 years later, during a 100-day span in 1994, Rwanda's Hutu government killed between 1/2 and 1 million Tutsis.
The Uyghur genocide that started in 2014 and is still happening now is the largest scale detention of ethnic and religious minorities since World War II. What happens when countries pledge to stop genocide if it does happen again? When US President Jimmy Carter proclaimed in 1979 as, "Never again will the world fail to act in time to prevent a crime this terrible of genocide." Did we not mean it? Are we done listening? Repeating our mistakes from the past simply because we choose to act ignorant when people are asking for our help them reach safety, is the same reason we are dooming future generations of families and children.
Those of us who know that when we say one day we will be safe, because we were privileged enough to experience it almost every day, know that it has to mean something, now more than ever. Feeling safe for me, for you, it must mean everybody, every mother, every father, every child waking up in the morning and deeply believing that we deserve to live in a safe place and we deserve to fully experience the happiness it can bring us. One day we will all be safe.
My name's Hussein from Witton Park. The focus of this poem is one day everyone will have enough to eat. Starvation, the most extreme form of malnutrition. If prolonged, it can cause permanent and severe organ damage. Starvation, it can lead to death. 8 years ago, millions of innocent souls were lost during the inhumane oppression of Jews during the Holocaust. We always say, "I'm starving," yet we won't ever experience the realities of starvation. They must have cried and prayed that one day they'd have enough to eat. While the sky is so sunny, nearly 1 billion go hungry. People fall victim to starvation. We throw away food daily, which could feed an entire nation. Surely that's a crime. Surely that's a sin worthy of damnation. It must be heartbreaking to see a child go hungry, to never have felt being healthy, to see them cry in the morning light. There is no bread in sight, no croissants to devour, no tea to drink, no coffee to drink, no cereal to eat. Their resources are depleted. They live with the hope that one day they will have enough to eat. Life is short. Without food, it's shorter. Brutal hunger is cruel. We are thoughtless, it's true. Every day we take no notice of the blessings we have. We don't count food and water that a whole billion don't have. We must hope that one day everyone has enough to eat. We live off the hope that one day everyone will have enough to eat. The world isn't fair, we have so much. There are people in this world who go without hot bread's warming touch. You and I live off something we cannot see, something we cannot touch. That something is hope. The hope that one day everyone will have enough to eat. We waste enough food daily to feed an entire family. I'm trying so hard to be a better me. I want you to try just as hard to be a better you, so that one day everyone will have enough to eat. So that one day everyone will have enough to eat. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We are here from Blackburn Central High School. I'm here with some Year 10 students. We are a multicultural school with asylum seeking and refugee families and children here. Those families have escaped persecution and war, and we are a safe place for those families amongst all the other nationalities we have here. We are also proud recipients of the Renee Black Award. Renee was a Holocaust survivor, and as we treat her and see her as a pioneer. She was a brave, strong, resilient woman and a wonderful role model for not just her faith, but for communities across our borough and across the UK. We're honoured to be here today, along with everybody else, to remember all lives lost in genocide throughout history And Mia has a few words for us now. Thank you.
One day we will meet again. Despite our different religions, races, and characteristics, we shall be together again. But not on the battlefield ridden with bloodshed, but rather in the high heavens where the people we lost are at peace. One day we shall learn from our past mistakes and ensure these events do not take place again. Our one day is today, where we honor the millions of people who lost their lives in a war that shouldn't have taken place. But one day we shall meet again in peace and love. One day.
Thank you.
What does peace mean to you? Is it a time when people treat each other fairly? Is it a time without fear? Is it a world without war? Proverbs 10:20 says, those who plan peace have joy. It is often said that peace is a gift. On the 8th of May 1945, peace was declared in Europe. The end of the war brought a sense of hope and possibility for many who had experienced the hardships of the Second World War.
However, the fight still continued for the Jewish people who had faced suffering on a massive scale, many of which were displaced people seeking refuge. They have been denied their basic human rights. They have been treated like animals. They have faced starvation and disease in the ghettos and then imprisonment or certain death in the concentration camps. Throughout this time, the hope for peace one day would be necessary for them to eventually share their experience of persecution and the memories of those who did not survive the world.
This hope rested on the belief that one day the war would end and peace would come again. The belief that one day there will be peace in our world. When people remain focused on hope, it spreads to others. One such person who held on tight to the flickering glimmer of hope that peace would return was Anne Frank. She said, "I simply cannot build my hopes on the foundation of confusion, misery, and death. And yet, I think this cruelty will end, and that peace and tranquility will return."
The Hebrew word for peace is shalom. The word shalom means something that has been completed or restored. We can link this idea to our broken world and the problems that people continue to face in areas of conflict. We still haven't learned from the terrible mistakes of the past. We need to work together to promote love, tolerance, and patience, safe in the hope that one day there will be peace in our world.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Hafsa.
And I'm Amani, and we're from Fleckgate.
And today we'll be saying the speech, "One Day There'll Be Justice for All." Justice. This is the idea that promotes fairness and equality across many aspects of society. In our world today, I cannot completely say that every individual in every nation is treated with such values. Nevertheless, I am certain that we have advanced as a civilization and things are better than they once were.
As we reflect upon the constant injustice and despotism that many millions have adhered, where prejudice and discrimination were not only executed to the extent of genocide, but so ruthlessly embedded into the everyday lives of many, is utterly heartbreaking. No one should question the future to this extent. No one should wake up wondering, when can I return home? No one should have to live in constant fear and starvation and pure suffering to this extent. Constant propaganda, and let's not kid ourselves, brainwashing, led to injustice on a scale that is quite difficult to even articulate. So let society not forget. Prejudice leads to discrimination. Discrimination is unjust, and injustice, as history shows, could lead to mass genocide.
Today we looked at the past and see how far we have come as a society. Unlike multiple occasions in history where people overlook these injustices, I am confident to say that over the past 3 years, there's numerous people from across the globe standing up and speaking out against matters like these. For example, the 2020 George Floyd movement, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, this showed that no matter what religion, what nationality, what race, what gender, people became united as one, protesting, campaigning, and speaking out, trying to stop this discrimination from ever happening again.
As Martin Luther King Jr. once said, injustice and corruption will never be transformed by keeping them hidden, but only by bringing them out into the light and confronting them with the power of love. This current 2020 George Floyd movement is an example of progress that as a society, we have the ability to highlight issues around the world that many face and work together to transform them. We at Pledgate as a unit, as a society, will continue to advance as a civilization, and one day there will be justice for all.
Good afternoon. We are Year 9 students from Tahidal Islam Girls High School. From the start, we apologize if there are any temporary glitches throughout our poem. Please bear with us. One day there will be equality for all.
A world of peace, a world of glee. Those suffering are given justice and fairness. Nobody is left imprisoned, and everyone will be free.
Racial wars and ethnic fights have they been questioned why, when in front of your face is the answer, but by new standards are they abided by.
Many genocides are now known in history. The massacre of innocent children, women, and Jews. Their torment and death are horrific tragedies. Why should anyone have to suffer such hurt and abuse?
One day we hope for peace, when the agonized cry of the innocent will no longer be heard, replaced by the simple song of the harmonious birds. This will be the result in the final masterpiece.
One day there will be equality for all. No longer will the suffering of the past be a burden for any soul. The longing for the day when the world of prejudice and hatred will shatter and fall. The hope that violence will cease to exist. Pain and anguish shall no longer be felt, waiting for the time when love and kindness shall render even the harshest of hearts to melt, when solace and hope is what we want to have felt.
One day I want to see the world in better hands, a world where peace is spread across the lands, where only love commands, and it is justice that the system demands.
One day I want to hear that no blood has been shed, where no disputes have resulted in the dead. One day I hope that every child is fed, and no memory of theirs is stained with red.
I want to see a world where we stand hand in hand, no matter what race, religion, or gender.
Transformation is possible. When discrimination is replaced by kindness, respect will be unstoppable. Inequality is replaced by equality, hatred by love, and where everyone will rise, not fall. I pray for the day when there will be equality for all. Thank you for listening to our poem.
My name is Alison Ashworth Taylor, and I speak today as Chair of the Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education for Blackburn with Darwen. Our group is made up of people from a wide range of faith groups who volunteer to work together on common goals and a shared understanding. Our group is very aware of and incredibly proud of the nature of the religious, ethnic, and cultural diversity in our local area. And we take active steps to inform ourselves about the distinctive needs and opportunities created by this diversity. We work together to support and develop the religious education that our children and young people will receive, and growing knowledge and understanding of religious and worldviews. It is a real privilege to speak today on this, the most poignant of days, one day, where together we bear witness for all those who endured genocide and honour the survivors and all those whose lives were changed beyond recognition. We as a group, and I as a chair, hope that our work will play a key role in the work of the local authority and in society. We endeavour to take the initiative to promote activities and to discuss and contribute to the wider local authority initiatives that promote both social and racial harmony. We were, for example, delighted and honoured to be a major partner in the work in schools last term with the Message Trust. We needed to come together with others to confront the devastating impact that knife crime has. We supported the No More Knives in our high schools to show young people there is another way, and to raise the awareness of the importance of tackling knife crime. Today, though, we are indeed humbled in our need to honour and remember those who came before. In our work, we have the enduring hope that in our children and young people, we plant the seeds that will ultimately grow to create a society where one day we can truly live in harmony alongside each other, where mutual understanding and respect will prevail. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for all those heartfelt reflections, which are very, very pertinent and poignant between them. We now have a contribution by our, here he is, Mohammed Bapu, who's the Deputy Youth MP.
The Holocaust, also known as the Shoah, was the World War II genocide across Nazi-occupied Europe and Germany between 1941 and 1945. Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews, which at that time was up to 2/3 of the Jewish population in Europe. It is important that the youth of today remember the Holocaust for many reasons. It is important that young people continue to develop on their knowledge of these ideologies and what the consequences of these can be, and to develop a moral compass. An excellent way to achieve this would be going on school or college trips to these historic memorial sites and learning more. I think this would give a full insight to students about what it would be like to live through these horrific events such as the Holocaust. By visiting sites such as Auschwitz, it would give students the ability to develop more morally and socially, understand the consequences of such tyrannical leadership. Young people need to gain a real understanding of the Holocaust and the impacts of it to help them foster a sense of responsibility and gain a real understanding of the horrific impacts of the Holocaust. Schools have an obligation to develop and help their students understand the real impacts of the Holocaust whilst also developing morally and socially. And there's a real need to preserve sites such as Auschwitz for future generations to learn from. Through visits, trips, reading and discussion, young people can gain a real understanding how children during Nazi Germany were forced to embrace an ideology such as being a Nazi and the impact that this had on them, moulding them into that sort of idea and them having no opportunity to go a different way and not take that option. Through visits, trips, reading and discussion, young people can gain a real understanding of how children during Nazi Germany were forced to be moulded into the racist ideologies of the Nazis and how this had a real impact on them. I remember reading Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl, which made me realise that young people are also amongst the victims. The Holocaust is more than a history lesson, it's a lesson about human behaviour that still resonates today.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. And now we're very fortunate again to have Rabbi Arnold Saunders with us, who is going to give a keynote speech to our Remembrance of Holocaust Memorial. Arnold, you need to be unmuted.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Quite right. Mr. Mayor, civic and religious dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, in particular the young ladies and gentlemen that are on the call and that we've just heard from. Thank you for introducing me and for your chairing the proceedings, Derek. You've introduced me as the keynote speaker, but I have to say I'm humbled by the contributions of the young ladies and gentlemen from the schools and academies who've spoken already and made such wonderful poems and so on. Really, it's very difficult to add too much to that, but I will just firstly say some of my own reflections on the theme of one day. There's a lot I could say. I'll just keep this short. One day, there are so many days that one could identify as one day in history, one day in time. And looking back at the Holocaust and other acts of genocide, there are so many days that one could say, well, this was the beginning. Historians often argue over when was the actual beginning of this, that, and the other. Sometimes you can say something very clearly. Well, this was the moment that war broke out because such a country invaded another, or another country gave its enemy till such a time to leave that country, or they'll be at war. Sometimes it can be very simple to say this is when it started, but other times it isn't so easy because things happen incrementally, bit by bit, and historians sometimes say, well, when did this war start? When did the French Revolution start? When did the Industrial Revolution start? Very difficult to give an exact day and time. And yet there were so many days that we could say, well, this is the one day that perhaps this happened, that happened, and perhaps we should have done something to stop it. Perhaps when Hitler came to power in 1933, knowing what he was like, knowing what his ideology was, he'd written a book, Mein Kampf. Perhaps the Allies should have taken action then. Perhaps we should have bore down on Nazi Germany harder. We shouldn't have allowed the Olympics to take place in 1936. For example, we shouldn't have allowed Nazi Germany to rearm, etc. Other days that we could point to, such as Kristallnacht in November 1938, the night of the broken glass, where Jewish synagogues and businesses were destroyed by Nazi stormtroopers and their helpers, and many, many other days as well, of course, including the start of the war, the start of the Shoah, as we've just heard. But there are other days that we could look to as significant in ending the war, in ending the Shoah, and ending the Holocaust, and indeed in other acts of genocide as well that we've heard about. The Battle of Britain, D-Day, other days that we can say, actually, this was a very significant day. And of course, today, the 27th of January, marks the day in which Auschwitz, the largest concentration camp, was actually liberated in 1945. On a personal note, there are days in the lives of my family. For example, my own late father, who, thank God, did not have to go through the Holocaust because he was able to take refuge here in the United Kingdom from what was then Czechoslovakia, which was, of course, one of the first countries to be invaded by Hitler. And he was given refuge here. So was my father-in-law as well. And those are very significant days that I think of in my own life. And of course, we think of the future when one day there will be peace on earth. But I'd like to just take a couple of moments to just say this, perhaps as a reflection. I've been coming here to Blackburn, I can't remember how many years, it's certainly more than 10 years, I think, that I've been keynote speaker or whatever at the Holocaust Memorial Day commemoration that you've arranged in the various forms that it's taken, including today's digital form. And by the way, congratulations to everybody who've put this together. It couldn't have been easy to put together a virtual commemoration like this. Now, you'll know that in the last 2 or 3 weeks, sadly, Blackburn has been in the news for the wrong reasons. It's been in the news throughout the country, throughout the world, for reasons that I don't think I need to elaborate on after terrible, well, what could have been a tragedy. Thank God the tragedy was averted, other than the fact that the young man who perpetrated the act of hostage taking in a synagogue in Texas, lost his own life. And as I say, Blackburn has had, if you like, a bad press. But let me tell you this, as somebody who's taken part in these events and others as well, I've been coming to Blackburn, not just Holocaust Memorial Day, but for other interfaith events. This does not represent the Blackburn I know and love, if I may say so. The Blackburn that I know is the Blackburn of multiculturalism, diversity. It's the Blackburn of the Interfaith Council, of other interfaith organizations. It's the Blackburn of a multicultural council, of multi-faith relations, as we have seen today, particularly by the wonderful contributions of the young school students. That is the Blackburn that I know, and that is the Blackburn that I think we must project to the world. I am very optimistic for the future. The world has many threats. We only have to look what's going on in Eastern Europe. With Russia, of course, danger is ever present. But I'm optimistic that when we see and hear what, for example, the contributions we've heard today from, particularly from the young people, I am convinced that one day, hopefully in the very near future, we will all come together as one and there will be peace on earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. As always, inspiring and to the point, and very, very, very relevant to this moment that we are going through. In remembering all that has happened to the Jewish nation, but also what is happening day by day here in this town and in other towns too. And now we have an opportunity to hear from the Mayor, Councillor Derek Hardman, and then followed by the Chair of the Interfaith Forum, Mr. Abdul Karakata. There will be a statement of contributions from them and some thoughts that they will make now. So, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to begin, that would be very good.
Thank you. We recognise that the Holocaust shook the foundations of modern civilization. Its unprecedented character and horror will always hold universal meaning. We believe the Holocaust must have a permanent place in our nation's collective memory. We honour the survivors still with us and reaffirm our shared goals of mutual understanding and justice. We must make sure that future generations understand the causes of Holocaust and reflect upon its consequences. We vow to remember the victims of Nazi persecution and all genocides. We value the sacrifices of those who have risked their lives to protect our rescue victims as a touchstone of human capacity for good faith of evil. We recognise that humanity is still scared by the belief that race, religion, disability, or sexuality make some people's lives worth less than others. Genocide, anti-Semitism, racism, xenophobia, and discrimination still continue. We have shared responsibility to fight these evils. We pledge to strengthen our efforts to promote education and research about Holocaust and other genocides. We will do our utmost to make sure that the lessons of such events are fully learned. We will continue to encourage Holocaust remembrance by holding an annual Holocaust Memorial Day. We condemn the years of prejudice, discrimination, and racism. We value a free, respectful, and democratic society.
Now I think we have a contribution from the Chair of the Interfaith Forum.
wonderful, worshipful Mayor, MP, Leader of the Council, honourable guests, friends and dear pupils. A very good afternoon to you all. This is a statement from the Blackburn with Darwen Interfaith Forum. Holocaust Memorial Day is so important because it makes us stop and reflect carefully about what is important in life, as well as the modern day genocides taking place around the world as we speak. Our priority and thoughts must be given to how we can all live our lives in harmony with each other, whilst at the same time being conscious that this is the reason for us being. A life that is lived without respect and consideration for others is a rather wasted life. Whilst I am not a great fan of Cilla Black, her song, What's It All About, Alfie, is quite poignant and poses the question to all of us, asking, what is life all about? The answer to this is that we are here to live in peace and harmony together. Holocaust Memorial Day reminds us that if we lose our compassion for one another, unsavory things can and do happen. We must therefore be mindful in all we do and say to make sure that we do not lose our moral compass, as has happened before. With all this in mind, the Blackburn with Darwen Interfaith Forum totally condemns the recent attack on the synagogue in Texas as wrong and completely unacceptable, as is any attack on any place of worship, which are places of sanctuary and peace for all respective faiths. We are extremely proud of the fact that all faiths in Blackburn and throughout Lancashire work together very hard to build good relationships with each other. We must therefore continue our efforts to ensure we make it known to everyone that acts of terrorism, such as what took place recently, are nothing to do with living a faith-filled life, and that we must commit ourselves to peaceful and friendly cooperation day by day, so that we will, as this year's theme for Holocaust Memorial Day, one day we will all live in peace and harmony with each other. Sincere peace and blessings to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdul. Again, words of great wisdom. Thank you for that. We now come to a time when, if you happen to have a little tea light candle nearby, you could light it. There's a picture on the screen of lit candles. And so we can observe a 1 minute silence whilst we remember what has been said and think about how things could be better one day.
I invite you all to join me in lighting a candle. We light each candle in memory of all those who were murdered in the Holocaust, under Nazi persecution, and in the genocides of Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia, and Darfur. We remember them. Please join me in a minute's silence.
Thank you all for observing that minute silence. And now we have, I'm calling on the Leader of the Council, Mohammed Khan, to come and speak to us in his closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Mayor, distinguished guests, young student from number of school, member of parliament, and other dignitary, good afternoon to you all. My name is Mohammed Khan. I'm leader of Blackburn with Durham Borough Council. Firstly, I would like to express my thanks to everyone who has contributed to this event today. And also my sincere thanks to all the people who organized this event. They are from Cathedral, they are Blackburn Council, and many number of people. I think it's for a difficult task, but thanks to our IT system that we can at least see each other. Unfortunately, this is second year we are not having face-to-face event, and reason is quite clearly known to everybody. Throughout my life, and also as a councillor for 30-odd years and leader of the council over 7 years, I have been supporting this important national event every year. I use every opportunity in the council chamber to condemn hate crime. We had a number of training and events about the hate crime in Blackburn. And today, as we mark the darkest chapter of human history, it is important to remember that the Holocaust did not begin with the gas chamber. It began with the word, with the people not standing up to hatred. The powerful message is as relevant today as at any time in our history. And I think as Rabbi Sanders said, we cannot just relax. This thing is still going on all over the world, not only in Texas. And I think what happened in Texas, Senegal, earlier this month has sought only to remind us of how important it is that we continue to learn the lesson that all form of hatred and prejudice against any minority must be confronted. I know it has caused tremendous pain for many people here in Blackburn and Texas. Blackburn was on spotlights and negative reason. And I think the Blackburn community as a whole was shocked, and they did condemn this type of austerity anywhere in the world. And we in Blackburn always shown our solidarity, our united front. Even this something happened in Manchester, France, Germany, or any other part of the world, we always stand together to condemn these people and their ideology. Blackburn is a place where we welcome everybody. There are a number of different communities. They spoke different languages, but I think we prevent those who wish to divide us from succeeding a united community. I have lived in Blackburn over 50 years, and I was in the United States for 8 years, and I came from Pakistan. I am brown skin, different accent, and being Muslim faith, but I feel lucky that my life experience has been nothing but positive, filled with opportunity, love, understanding from fellow neighbors. I have Jew neighbors. I love them. We always get together on Eid, on their days. And I think they moved out now. But I think when I was in the state, I was very much living very in part of the Jew community. And I think they are wonderful people. And I think people get really blamed for one thing or other. There are good and bad people in every community. And I think what's happened in Texas, it had nothing to do with the Muslim community. It's one individual who I think mentally was mad or probably done something which really upset many number of people in this town. And I think we are always united, and we have same solidarity shown to our many different communities here in condemning the attack on our Jewish neighbor has been overwhelming. We must never forget the horror of the past, and as we see anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and far-right extremists on the rise all over the world, it is more important than ever that we stand together against this hatred, uphold our values, and celebrate our diversity. History warns us that we are in danger allowing these people and festering the hate. It is clear we need to be redoubling our effort to make sure that we are going to have a united society. We have no place for it, and encourage others, to those witness suffer hate crime, to report it immediately to the police or any other law-abiding authority. Everyone has a part to play, contributing toward the fight against the extremism, intolerance, prejudice, and persecution. By taking a collective stand, we can build a better future where one day we all stand clear of the dreadful shadow of genocide. As one child who was only 14 years old wrote on 7th of May, 1944, "What is done cannot be ever done. What is done cannot be undone, but at least one can prevent it from happening again." So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for giving me a chance to say a few words, and I wish you all best.
We thank you all for joining us for this Holocaust Memorial Day, whether that has been in person or whether that has been